Have you ever tried to learn a language before?
You are fully capable.
And I mean really try. Not just take 1 or 2 classes in college and ultimately giving up after realizing that it's much easier to watch your anime with subtitles. Anyone who has tried to learn a language before will know that it's an incredibly long and challenging process that's not for the faint of heart. It requires a considerable investment of your time and money buying textbooks, making and reviewing flashcards, and then in some cases not learning just one but multiple different alphabets. About a month ago I started learning Japanese, and from my starting time to now, I've done a considerable amount of research into the science behind language learning. Since starting my language journey, I've been continuously thinking about how games can play a role in the language learning process. Today I want to share a vision for a game that could be an excellent tool for finding joy in learning a language. What is the most essential resource when learning a language? If we were to believe the hypotheses proposed by Stephen Carson, I totally butchered that name, please excuse me, the one thing we need most is comprehensive input. This basically means that when learning a language, the only thing that counts is getting a message that we can understand. And I personally think that this is something that is seen everywhere you go in a video game. Whether it's selecting menus, reading controls, walking from point A to point B, or talking to an NPC. Anything and everything you're doing in a video game is some sort of comprehensive input. All of us learn the languages the exact same way. We do this by being immersed within the language, hearing and seeing it everywhere we go, and then subconsciously forming and recognizing patterns into comprehensive lingo that we can understand and mentally process on the fly. This is a piece of information that I think is pretty obvious for anyone who's ever lived before. We all didn't learn to speak English naturally using flashcards and spaced repetition and various tech books going into details about when to use they, them, and their. Actually, that last part actually sounds a little bit accurate, but I digress. No, we all learned English because we lived in a place where English was naturally spoken. By constantly being exposed to it, our brains were naturally able to piece together how to speak the language. And then, as we went into school and started learning to read, we were then able to read and write and read the world around us. And this is a technique that has been proven time and time again to work. But what exactly does this have to do with video games? All of this relates to a language learning technique known as the Massive Immersion Approach is a language learning technique that sees the student attempt to immerse themselves in their target language as much as humanly possible. This means setting their phone to their target language, watching all their shows in their target language and subtitles, reading in their target language, and yes, even playing video games in their target language. But what exactly is the benefit to engaging with this kind of approach? To that, I'll refer you to a short clip from a video talking about the subject.
A study from Barcelona looking at Spanish speakers trying to learn English found that the worst way to learn was by putting Spanish subtitles on an English movie. This resulted in a 0% improvement in their English ability. Watching with no subtitles provided a 7% improvement, but watching the show in English with English subtitles provided a 17% improvement.
As you can see, the Massive Immersion Approach is a great tool for helping students engage with the type of material that they're learning. Now no longer is learning a language about beating vocabulary into your head until it sticks. Now it's about reading the world around you. With each new piece of vocabulary that you learn, you're able to read and understand more of what's going on around you. And this kind of back and forth between learning something new in my textbook and then going off and playing Animal Crossing and being able to understand what my villagers are saying instilled in me this awesome idea of what if this type of thing was a video game. Imagine a game where you move to a foreign land and you don't know anything about the language or the people around you. As you live in this new land more and more, you slowly begin to assimilate yourself into their culture, into their way of life, into their community. Slowly but surely learning their language through bits and pieces of interaction that you have with the people around you. Using resources like the public library, you'd slowly be able to learn to read their language, and thus be able to have better and more productive interactions with the people you meet. The concept, I think, is something that's truly beneficial to someone who really wants to learn a new language and really wants to immerse themselves within said language. And there's plenty more detail that I could talk about with how the game would function, but unfortunately I only have 5 minutes to be able to explain my concept to you. I hope in the future I'll be able to discuss it even more, and probably soon have a prototype up and running. Thanks so much for listening to me ramble about language learning and video games for a little bit. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Love you, bye.